Hello, and welcome to another episode of Amateur Reality Hackers. Today we're diving into a hidden danger lurking in your smart home, how IoT devices are being hijacked for devastating DDoS attacks. Stick around to learn how this happens and how to protect yourself.
Using your mind against you for a good time. You just might be exposed to things you didn't know about before. 'Cause we're amateur.
So, what is a DDoS attack? It is a distributed denial of service attack. Essentially, they flood the network or the server or network or server with just an excess of packets. So they flood the whole system with data, and they have multiple ways they can do it. There's either volume based, where you just smash the whole server or network with, like I said, packets, just data and data and data, and hope to overload the whole system, slow it down, make it crash. There's protocol based, which exploits vulnerabilities in network protocol like SYN floods. There's application layer, which targets specific apps with malicious requests. And then there's also host based, which is more like botnet based, and that's really a newer thing, and it's been past 7 years or so that's been a big deal. And we'll be going more into that because that's something that impacts the individual user a lot more than these other attacks will. A lot of the other attacks are just kind of something for webmasters to keep an eye open for, but the hostnet that can get nasty, especially if they've targeted a specific person and are just trying to keep them from accessing the internet, keeping them from accessing certain websites, that kind of thing. It's also a way of, I don't know, framing someone essentially for doing these things, and so they can pick an individual that they know that has a robust smart home and just target the hell out of their network and have it send stuff out. And that's going to basically flag your IP with your ISP, your internet service provider, and make them view you as being a malicious attacker when you're not. So actually, here's an interesting story about DDoS attacks. When I was younger, I was very heavy into the medical marijuana activism world. And I remember at one point there was a city council that had really come down on the whole medical marijuana scene. And I was never a part of it, even though I was privy to it. But they had created this democratic way of using DDoS attacks, where instead of hackers going through and targeting individuals and using their computer network to attack other people, they would generate a website and let people volunteer their computer and their computer power and their network, their IP address, towards doing this attack. And I don't think any of those people were protected, so I'm sure a lot of them probably ended up being put under heavy scrutiny over the whole thing and watched to see if they were doing other attacks like that. But it was essentially like hacktivism via voting, because if people didn't believe in the cause and not enough people contributed to the effort, then it wouldn't work. And so I think that they successfully did actually bring down a city website at one point. Like I said, I personally never had anything to do with that, and this is a great time to mention, don't hack people, don't hack things, don't do this at home, don't do this, period. So two of the main programs that were used originally, from my understanding, were LOIC and HOIC. And so there was first the low orbit ion cannon, and it was produced as a way for webmasters to test their own servers and their own protocol. Oh, my dog is being such a cutie in the background. What a adorable little doll. Anyway, and so it did the standard flooding of network activity to a network or a server, and it was a way for webmasters to check the robustness of their network. And so that way, if their website ever got a bunch of traffic, it wasn't going to just crash from overuse, which, being a webmaster, I gotta say, it does happen. Like one of my apps, the Webb security audit tool, has about 1,000 active users at any given time at this point. Which, by the way, free on the Microsoft Store, Web Security Audit Tool, totally worth grabbing. But in the usage of this thing one day, it got hit with so many pings to the RSS feed that feeds it that I manage. It ended up overloading my server, and all my websites went down. So I actually have that like separated off on its own network, its own virtual private server at this point, that manages just that one website with that one RSS feed, and everything else I have is separate. So that way, A, there's a lot more power and network activity dedicated just to that one function, and B, if that shit ever happens again, it's not going to bring down my entire website network essentially. So low orbit ion cannon, like I said, it originally came out just as a webmaster testing tool, and that was the whole point of it. And people realize, oh God, if I get a bunch of virtual machines and I load this program onto all these virtual machines, and then I send out 80, 90 copies of this and attack one website that's publicly available, it overloads that website as long as I know their IP address and can properly aim at it, and it'll bring down that website. And so people are using it against business competition. They were using it as a form of activism to bring down websites of people and organizations that they didn't like, and that kind of thing. And then they would maintain them as long as possible until the webmasters figured a way around it. Nowadays, those kind of attacks are a little bit more subdued just because of failover services that also offer encryption and detection for that kind of thing. And so I'm thinking, specifically like Cloudflare, but it's something that, a clever webmaster could spin up himself or find other cheaper services than Cloudflare. As long as you have a secondary server that kicks in as soon as your main server craps out, then who cares if one of the servers gets attacked, because they're only going to find the information for the one that's linked to the system. And then as soon as it gets hit with an attack and fails, it kicks back to the secondary one. Now, odds are they're going to go after the secondary one as soon as that happens, but that gives you time to get the first one in, and it becomes this terrible juggle where the webmaster's having to sit there and reconfigure and rebring up their server as their other one is being brought down. And so it'll slow things down a lot, but as long as they know what they're doing, it's pretty hard to actually bring down a website at this point. And Cloudflare, at least with standard Loic attacks, and Cloudflare is a great service, especially if you are a webmaster. I'm not, sponsored by them or getting any sort of promotion or anything, but just in general, they do provide a free website, I think, for each new account that you can protect like that. And so they're well worth utilizing if you're only running one website and you want to protect yourself from things like this. God, what is up with my eye? Did I have like a stroke today or something? Totally possible. Raising 3 kids on my own. Shit's never easy. From Loic, it went on to, I don't know why I'm moving my notes. I didn't actually read any of them. It moved on to Hoic, and that's the high orbit ion cannon. Hoic basically was Loic on crack. So it was just a massively advanced version of Hoic, or Loic, that used a lot of different turbocharging processes that essentially made the attacks that much more devastating, and it was designed more to be malicious than it was for webmasters to do their own server testing. And so with it, it took a lot less computers acting on a website with Hoic to bring it down. And those still get pretty nasty. Anyone that ever has messed around in the dark web and seen how often sites go down there, that's because it's common practice, especially on like the dark markets and that kind of stuff, which never use that kind of stuff. Again, please don't do anything illegal. This is not an endorsement. I'm just doing this for educational purposes. But you would see these sites go down all the time, and that's because there was a perpetual hack-off going on between all these different companies that would run these dark markets, and they were just perpetually trying to bring down their competition's website on the Onion network. So then another thing that they've been doing lately is, well, lately being the past decade, injection-based DDoS attacks. Injection methods leverage application layer vulnerabilities instead of just flooding the network to deliver payloads that cause excessive processing demands on the target server. Type of DDoS is evolving rapidly due to its precision and ability to bypass traditional network layer defenses. Attackers inject large or complex SQL queries. Oh
Oh my god, SQL queries. Queries? How the fuck do you say this word? So, for injection into databases, the attackers inject large or complex SQL queries.
That word feels fake now. I've said it so many goddamn times.
into vulnerable endpoints. So the target database becomes overwhelmed by processing the payload, and so the SQL is a database format that a lot of webmasters will use. And as your website is saving customer data, credit card information, different personal data that a lot of these places will harvest when you go to their website, it's all getting saved to an SQL database. And the same with any, God, there's just so many things that SQL databases go for. If you have more complex functions on a PHP website, the SQL databases are basically your memory bank that the website's code will interact with. And so by injecting a bunch of crap into it and forcing it to do things that it wouldn't otherwise do, it's very easy to overwhelm the system. So there's also the XML and JSON payload injections. Malformed XML or JSON payloads are sent to API endpoints. And so this is basically, websites will offer API connections for different programmers and coders and other websites to use that will provide, dedicated, I'm thinking like PayPal, for example, has a bunch of APIs that they use. And so they'll have different code snippets that you can put into your own website that'll allow direct interaction with their website and their services, and those are APIs. And so the people will target those, and then same thing, just overload them with crap that they don't need, malformed packages and mass, and bring down the system. The parsing process consumes significant computational resources, causing delays or outages. Let's see, then there's resource amplification. This exploits services that respond with significantly larger data than requested, such as DNS amplification or HTTP request smuggling. And so this is just overloading the system through these other exploitable ends, essentially. And that kind of brings us to what we got going on these days, which is a lot more prevalent, which is the smart devices in your home. And the smart devices in your home are being leveraged as injection points. And so attackers will exploit IoT devices.
They'll exploit IoT devices, which is Internet of Things. It's your smart devices that people use in your home, your coffee pot that'll respond to Alexa, your light bulbs that respond to Alexa, your locks and your alarms and that kind of stuff. Anything that'll connect directly to a smart home system. And
reflection and amplification techniques they use services like NTP, memcached, or DNS intermediates to amplify traffic volume. So the attacker sends spoofed requests that appear to originate from the victim, resulting in amplified response, because essentially your system sees this. If they're attacking, like, for example, someone's running a web server from their house and they're trying to attack that, or from a business that's using, smart vacuums and smart bulbs and that kind of thing to automate their whole environment. They'll attack these devices and then send the signal flood looped back on itself from those devices, because your security on your network isn't going to see that and then block it. It's going to see it as an internally created network activity and just assume that it's safe because it came from within your network itself. The other thing they can do is they'll take these devices and then they'll mass flood from these devices, and now all of a sudden you have signals coming out from all these devices to a certain website, and they can create a whole botnet where, let's say you've got 6 devices in your house, and then they have 40 other people that they've attacked the same way and vetted to make sure that they have smart devices that they can use to these ends. they'll go through and just send out signals from all these at once, so you don't see any actual weird activity on your computer, but yet your house and your router and your internet service provider is now one of the malicious hubs for this attack that's bringing down, corporate website or government website or, health insurance, that kind of thing. And there's quite a few ways that people can protect themselves, just in general, from these botnet IoT device hacks. One of the main ones is just to get a firewall. So some sort of intrusion detection system and intrusion prevention system, IDS and IPS. Implement rate limiting and geofencing to filter malicious traffic. I personally like to screw around with technology all the time. I have corporate clients that, they're corporate clients. They're smaller businesses that get security, network security and network management from me, because I also run a computer repair service. And for a lot of them, there's this real balance in finding a service that isn't going to cost an arm and a leg, but also is going to provide them a professional level of security. And so, like OpenSense and pfSense, they both have a great ability to them. Out of box, they're pretty shit. But if you know how to work with them and you know how to set them up to help people, then they're just invaluable. You can take an old desktop computer from 10 years ago, shove a extra Ethernet card in there so you have an incoming and outgoing port, run the signal straight from the wall to the OpenSense firewall that you set up, and as long as you set it up right, and there's a couple services you can pay for that have live monitoring with them and live updates and that kind of thing. If you're not so code friendly that you can set those things up yourself, then just using one of those services in combination with the other OpenSense or pfSense applications is extremely useful. And it's going to provide, this first layer of security. It's definitely not the only thing you want to do, but it's a whole hell of a lot better than not having a hardware firewall built into your network. Another thing is that, website owners, they can use CAPTCHAs or other challenges, response mechanisms to verify legitimate traffic. So if you've ever noticed that every once in a while you'll find a CAPTCHA that it's obviously not trying to keep AI from using it. It's not trying to, run you through the hoops. It's just like a quick little puzzle piece you have to move or something like that. Even though it might seem silly on the user end, that's actually critical for the webmaster, because it's going to keep these devices from infiltrating their system and causing a bunch of damage and problems. Let's see. You can employ web application firewalls to filter malicious requests. And so this is, again, a webmaster thing that they can do. Let's see, distribute traffic across multiple nodes to absorb and mitigate the attack impact. What I did, where if you have 20 websites, instead of shoving 20 websites on one server, you take that website or even specific pages from a single website and distribute them among multiple servers, so that way you have as much processing power and network bandwidth as possible serving your websites, and it's a lot harder to bring it down by clogging up the system, essentially. Imagine instead of having one small hose with everything running through it, you have 10 medium-sized hoses that are all running the exact same amount of stuff. One of them is going to be a lot harder to clog and cause damage to everything at once. You might be able to bring down one aspect of things, but it's going to help you keep everything kind of distributed. Let's see, you can also implement AI-driven monitoring tools to identify unusual traffic patterns. You can do that on one of these physical firewalls that you can implement, or you can do that through various services that'll do network monitoring and look for certain things, flag them, you shut off your internet if things are going super sideways. And webmasters have AI options also. So the way the IoT devices, and we're going to really focus in on this until I tell you the best ways to protect yourself with that, that they find an access to the IoT device, the malware they have, they'll send in, connects to the device's and then connects multiple devices in the home together as a botnet or across multiple homes. The hackers command devices to flood a target, whether that's in the individual's house, which is going to be, or business, which is going to be a lot more effective for bypassing a lot of security measures. But a single IoT device doesn't generate much traffic, but a botnet with, hundreds or even thousands, that's, a total tidal wave that's going to bring down whatever they're trying to bring down quite easily. And so there's quite a few examples of them doing this already. Back in 2016, there was the Mirai botnet, M-I-R-A-I. Then there's the Satori botnet. And so the Mirai one actually brought down, that was the one that brought, what was it, Netflix and quite a few other services down for quite a while in 2016. And then the Satori botnet, that one just targets routers, and they know about it. I don't think it's actually, I don't know what the hell that one did. The only one I actually knew about as I was doing all this research was the Mariah one back in 2016. And then there was the Mosey botnet, and it's a persistent IoT botnet for long-term attacks. And so this one's kind of nasty because it'll just sit in there, and you don't know it's there, and you can't find it. And they have it distributed in such a way that if you get rid of devices on your net, it just pops back. I keep thinking that Mosey might be connected to state-funded, not necessarily United States, but like fucking North Korea or something like that. Just with the persistence it has and its ability to kind of linger in the system, it's very reminiscent of other, well, I mean, feel free to watch my video on the CIA and their ability to get into people's computers. So, how can you protect yourself from the Internet of Things attacks? How can you make sure that you're not accidentally implicit in helping a botnet run? In addition to, all the other stuff I mentioned that's good for webmasters, and it's a little higher end, a little more expensive. It's getting a physical hardware firewall set up, unless you can figure out how to do it yourself. You're looking at anywhere from $700 to a few $1,000s, plus usually annual fees. Change your passwords. So when it says, every 6 months that you're supposed to change your password, do it. Use a different password for every device. The best way that I have found to save your password in a reliable way is to take a picture. You decide different passwords based on different points on the picture. Then if you have a shitty memory, you take another piece of paper, you put it over the picture, and you draw dots. So like, for example, if you're going to have one of your passwords be nose, ear, teeth, you would find a picture with nose, ear, and teeth, and you would do that. You can do a similar thing with books. Like, you choose a page in a book, and you go through, you take a piece of paper, put it over the page in the book, and you draw lines through each word that's going to be in your new password, and then, circle the punctuation, or however you want to do it. But that's a way of basically giving yourself a simple key to find your password if you need it. But if anyone finds the book, they're not going to know your passwords, because they're not going to know what the fuck you're looking at. And if anyone finds your key, they're going to think you're just going schizophrenic and drawing lines and dots on a piece of paper. And so you just don't ever keep those two things together, and you're going to be absolutely fine. I personally have a lot of tattoos, and I actually have some tattoos that are the same device, but for, they're on me, so that way I never lose them. But you go through and you change your passwords every 6 months. Make sure not to put a copy of the password down on, or more frequently is better. Don't make a copy of it on the computer. Don't write them down in a book and just leave the book laying around in your desk. These things are wildly irresponsible when it comes to internet security, and are just begging for you to have some sort of issue, and I don't want that to happen to people. Like, the more protected in general the public is, and the happier they feel and safer they feel using a computer, the happier I am, because I've got 14 programs out of the Microsoft Store, and I want you all using computers all the time and real happy about it. So another thing you can do is to update your firmware. Every single smart device, a lot of them don't remind you or tell you to check for updates, and they don't do automatic updates checks like you would expect them to. And so just, choose a day of the month and then go through all your apps on your phone that are connected to smart devices and check if there's firmware updates. If there are firmware updates, a lot of times those are security based, and those are the companies going, oh shit, someone figured out how to use our stuff, we should go in and change some things so they can't do it anymore. Another option is network segmentation. So a lot of internet service provider routers, wireless signal routers, those kind of things that you'll pump your internet through, have the ability to kind of separate out sections through tunneling or through different means of your network. And if that's possible, like, just shove all your Internet of Things on one network and keep all the other stuff separate. You know, the more you can isolate your Internet of Things devices, the easier it is to shut them down. Or if anything ever comes back on you, go, I don't know, no, I know exactly what the hell happened, because that part of my network is only connected to Internet of Things devices. Like, I can show you. There's a bunch of network traffic monitoring stuff out there. Both the Web Security Audit tool, which is free, and the Web Computer Shield are based on network traffic monitoring. And so they're not, the Web Security Audit tool is going to look at the whole network and see if there's a problem. And it's, like I said, a free service. It doesn't actually protect you from anything, but it's all about alerts. And then the Web Computer Shield is doing network monitoring, but it's more isolated to your device and less to your network. And so it's using this network monitoring technique to make sure that, for example, your computer isn't suddenly sending out weird packets to places it's not supposed to be. So you can also just get specific firewalls designed for the IoT devices. I know they're a thing. I've personally never used one. I already have a hardware firewall at the tip of my network, so I don't know. I just never looked into these ones. However, that I've heard really good things about them being useful against this kind of attack. And so by taking steps like that, you can protect yourself. You can keep yourself safe. You know, just because it's a nasty world doesn't mean you have to go through nasty things, essentially. And so IoT devices have transformed our lives, but they come with risks. But they come with risks. Protecting them not only keeps you secure, but also helps prevent attacks that could disrupt the internet and other people's websites. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Amateur Reality Hackers. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more tech insights, cool interviews, and random live gameplay, because why the fuck not? Stay safe, stay secure. I believe in you. You can do it. It's a hard world out there. You'll be alright, though.